This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week, I'm going to tell you about some lessons that I learned this year as my university's Faculty Senate President. One of the things that I think has been most surprising to me as a professor is I thought that professors taught and did research. When I became a professor, I learned that a lot more than that. They do a lot of service, they're in a lot of committees, they get involved in administrations, and sometimes they get involved in shared governance. Shared governance means that faculty and staff will have some say and some representation in how the universities and their colleges are run. And a little bit ago, my colleagues decided that they would entrust me and elect me to be the Faculty Senate President. As Faculty Senate President, I'm the first representative for faculty and professional staff to our upper administration at my university. This means that I have meetings with our president, our provost, our chief of staff, members of the cabinet, and lots of people on my campus to represent faculty and professional staff to ensure that they have the best quality of professional life that they can at my university. This past year, I had meetings about so many things and so many meetings. We had meetings about general education requirements. We had meetings about salary and compensation. We had meetings about micro-credentials. We had meetings about representation. We had meetings about our university handbook. We had meetings about our Faculty Senate Constitution. Many of those meetings I even led. I did a lot this year, and I learned a lot. And today, I want to share with you some of the lessons that I learned as Faculty Senate President. One of the first lessons that I learned is that I can't always be prepared ahead of time for the roles and responsibilities that I take on. I thought I was prepared to be Faculty Senate President, and I had a lot of experiences that suggested maybe I was. But as the role started, I started to learn there are a lot of things I never anticipated. And what happened is I entered a period of rapid professional development. As those challenges, as those issues are coming in, as different roles and responsibilities are coming on me, I had to figure out a way to do all of those things. And for the most part, I did. For the most part, I was able to kind of keep my head above water and manage the chaos around me. But leading into the second lesson that I learned that the imposter phenomenon does not go away. The imposter phenomenon, as you've probably heard other people talk about before, and we've talked about before in this video series too, is when you think that you're in a role that you are not ready for and you're not qualified for, and someone's going to come and find out and kick you out immediately. And that was kind of my daily experience sometimes as Faculty Senate President. And what I learned in dealing with that imposter phenomenon, we'll get to some of this later, use your support system, ask questions, and just keep working. The third lesson that I learned as Faculty Senate President is I had to think not about myself, but in terms of the collective that I represented. My perspective, I think, is a pretty good one, a pretty valid one, but it's not the only one. And as Faculty Senate President, I had to seek out and consider other people's perspectives than my own. And in representing those perspectives, sometimes I had to ask a question, raise an issue, or even advocate a position that wasn't necessarily the one that I personally believed in, but it's the one that I had to represent for the collective that I represented. And I had to do it even when it was scary to do so. The fourth lesson that I learned as Faculty Senate President is things are more complicated than I thought. It is very easy sometimes to say, well, why don't people just do that? Why don't people just fix that issue? And then when you get into a situation, you start to learn the context, you start to learn the information, you start to learn the barriers, the policies, the procedures. You suddenly understand why they didn't just do that easy thing. In this role, I got a lot of information. A lot of people were willing to share with me the context for why an issue is presenting itself or how a problem is presenting. And unfortunately, while they shared that context with me, I couldn't always share that out further. So sometimes you could understand the complexity of the issue, even though you couldn't share that complexity with others. A couple of cliches here that are relevant is I get to learn how the sausage was made, and I get to be in the room where it happened. And not only are things more complicated than they thought, they also take longer than I thought. And this leads into my fifth lesson as I learned I can't make changes and do things by myself. In order to succeed in any administrative role, and definitely as a Faculty Senate President, I learned that you have to be collaborative. You have to work with other people toward a common objective. And for me, there are a lot of people that I get to work with. I get to work with a Faculty Senate Leadership Council made up of wonderful colleagues. I get to work with chairs of our standing committees and faculty senate. I get to work with our upper administrators like our president and our provost and members of our cabinet. I get to work with other bodies of shared governance like our Student Governing Association and our University Support Staff Senate. I also got to work with a wonderful Faculty Senate Executive Committee and then about 100 faculty senators. But most importantly, I got to work with wonderful support people like the other officers in Faculty Senate, like the past president and our president-elect, and also our parliamentarian, who tried to keep me as close as we could to Robert's Rules of Order and not my area of expertise there. But the person I was most thankful to work with was Candace LaBerge, who was the support person for Faculty Senate, and without her, I would have no idea what I was doing at any point during this past year. The sixth thing that I learned this year is that relationships are everything. I learned that, talking about that collaboration, it is important to listen to people. And sometimes I maybe don't listen as much as I should, but in this role, I really learned that I needed to listen to people, I needed to hear their perspective, and I had to try to understand it. I learned that I had to listen even if I didn't agree or if I couldn't help fix the concern that they were raising to me. I had to listen. I believe that we all need to have the opportunity to share our experiences, to share our concerns, and to be heard. And what I tried to do is I tried to be the person who heard them. And when disagreements come up, I learned that if we have a relationship and if we respect each other, that disagreement is going to be easier to manage. The seventh thing that I learned this year as Faculty Senate President, it's important sometimes to think about the progress that you've made and the things that you've done. Being a Faculty Senate President and probably being an administrator of many other types, those positions are often very reactive. You're responding to crises. You're responding to things that are coming up. It's easy to forget about the things that you've accomplished when you're dealing with a crisis. And every now and then I found it was healthy and fulfilling to think back and look at the stuff we had done so far rather than get completely lost in the new thing that was taking up our time. The eighth lesson that I learned, and this shouldn't be surprising if you've watched this channel before, is I saw the value in bringing peace to everything that I did as Faculty Senate President. Peace is something we talk about in the teaching domain all the time, and you've heard me say before that I think that teachers should bring preparation, expertise, authenticity, caring, and engagement to everything they do. We've talked about bringing peace to research labs before, and now I'm extending that to everything. I think that bringing peace to administrative and leadership roles is utterly important to making sure that people are being treated the way that they should be treated, and you're making decisions and you're performing your leadership role the way that you should. I'll also add in that empathy, that caring aspect of peace, empathy is super important and be able to think about those other perspectives that maybe you don't personally hold, going back to some earlier points that I've made. And I'll also say that having a sense of humor once in a while, that absolutely be helpful too. The ninth thing that I learned as Faculty Senate President is that the two most important things that I have are my time and my voice. These are things that I've taught my students in my class before, that the only ways you're going to be able to do anything in your world is to invest time and use your voice. And I learned as Faculty Senate President, using my voice and my time judiciously, using them strategically, and sometimes using them persistently is what I needed to do to perform this role well. And using my voice and my time in this role is one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done professionally. The 10th lesson that I learned as Faculty Senate President is the importance of gratitude. We've talked about gratitude before. It's important to thank our students. It's important that we recognize the experiences that we have, the roles and responsibilities that are entrusted to us. And this became really, really salient to me as Faculty Senate President because I am amazingly grateful to the people who elected me to and entrusted me with this role. I am incredibly grateful that people let me represent them as best I could as faculty and staff at my university. I am also super grateful that they supported me despite my performance being far from perfect. As one example, I actually began a meeting by mistakenly adjourning it. Throughout my imperfect experience, I tried to bring peace, I tried to listen to people's voices, and I tried to represent, and I'm so thankful that I had this opportunity. So I want to thank y'all for bearing with me, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish this year together. I hope you find my experience and my perspective helpful as you engage in new roles and responsibilities in your professional careers. In the comments below, I would love to hear about the experiences that you had and the lessons that you've learned in your various professional roles. I'd also love to hear about any questions you have about my experience, and I'll be happy to share that with you. Thank you for watching this episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.